See that. So welcome everybody. Today is our monthly meeting for the month of June, Citizens Climate Lobby. And for our agenda today, as I always do, I like to say hello to all the new members, new folks that have joined. And then for today, we have a presentation from Bob Hendricks. Bob is one of our CCL volunteers, and he's also our Texas State coordinator. So Bob has a really active, important job within CCL. And Bob is going to be talking on the topic of positive tipping points. So I think this is going to be a really good presentation. And then following that, we'll go through our other miscellaneous items, CCL events that are coming up, and any new status updates from our 5 team levers. So before we do get started, I always do have this QR code here. If people would like to be able to get access to our actual agenda files, and we do have many other web links inside the file. Excuse me. So if you do want to get that QR code, I'll wait here for a few minutes, a couple of minutes at least, while you get that. Right. Hopefully everybody has that. And I'm going to stop sharing now. And Bob, if you can hold on 1 minute, I also like to put the web link for our meeting agenda into the chat window. Let me do that now so everybody has that also in the chat. So it's there. And Bob, feel free to go ahead and share your slides and we'll go ahead and get started.
There has been a lot of research in the last few years, and a very important book called Positive Tipping Points: How Climate Solutions Can Accelerate by Tim Linton. I think that may be the most important book for climate activists in the last several years. Okay, come on. My slide isn't advancing. Okay, there it goes. Okay, first of all, briefly, a tipping point implies that you have a difficult change. You have two different states and a barrier between them. There's a threshold, and so you have to force it over that barrier, and then it settles into a new state. It actually accelerates itself after there. Are y'all seeing the change of slides?
Yes.
Good. Now, quickly, tipping points is really used for two different things. The tipping points that are Earth system points like caused by warming. These may or may not accelerate warming. For example, coral reefs is a really important issue for climate that has huge implications for ocean life. But it won't increase warming if and when coral reefs collapse. But others can accelerate. For example, if we lose the permafrost, it will release carbon dioxide, which will add to the thing. But I want to mention these tipping points because they are what makes urgency greater. We don't know when we may hit climate system feedback tipping points that will accelerate warming. But if we keep on the current path, we will get to them. And at that point, it can become extremely difficult to stop global warming. However, this book it does review tipping points and done an excellent job of the climate systems, but its main focus is on social tipping points, societies changes, and he talks about how social change has had tipping points. How at first a few people work really hard, and then at some point it changes. He goes through women's suffrage, abolition movement, civil rights movement, public smoking bans, and in most places in now, well, at the places where it affected, it hit a point in which it became, oh yes, that of course we should let women have the right to vote. And yet at the early on, it looked impossible to make that happen, including by the people who were working on it. Now, I'm going to summarize some key points right now. The one of the things to note is that change is nonlinear. It accelerates steadily. Action is the most important action, even though it can be the part that you feel like nothing's happening. A third thing, small committed groups can trigger system-wide change. You know, there's gathering momentum, but there's often some really important people at the beginning who are really working on it hard. Now, this is happening now. Solar and electric vehicles have already crossed important tipping points. And I'm going to go a little bit more into those in the rest of this lecture. So our job is not, we don't have to push and push and push. It's not like we have a mountain with net zero at the top and we have to keep pushing all the way to that top. At some point we hit the top of the mountain and then we go downhill to the end point. Okay, come on. There we go. Now, so let's look at solar. Notice that we started working on solar back before 2010. And note that this curve is showing that in terms of global, it has started to really accelerate. And there have been a number of pieces that have contributed. Here is some specific countries and areas that shows the total addition of solar in these places. And these were all case study issues, and I'll touch on most of them. China obviously is a big country and a big driver. And notice of that 1,000 gigawatts of capacity, over 300 gigawatts was just in 2024. And they continued to exceed that over the next several years. I didn't have the data for this full graph for that, but so this is a huge acceleration. What happened in China to make that happen? Well, one of the pieces with solar energy, a big piece of it has been economics, cost of solar. And in China, by having manufacturing scale, and this is true for many products, you end up reducing the cost significantly and more, and then that leads to more, and that leads to lower costs, and that really helps to accelerate the adoption of solar based on economic. In addition, you have to have the supporting things. For example, the grid. If you don't have enough transmission lines, you can't hook up solar even if you build it. And so the grid build out in China did that to a huge degree. They provided all the financing necessary, and they had every local and province supporting it. And one of the nice things is their huge scale has helped drive global price declines. Uh, Another early adopter of solar was Germany. And again, they recognized the climate change problem and they set a policy to do this even when it wasn't as expensive. But there again, there was a reinforcing loop. The policies actually gave returns on the investment of people, given the policies they had. They learned how to do it better. The costs went down, And then other places in Europe looked over there and said, "Wow, they're making it work. Let's learn from what they've learned and do some of that themselves." Another case in Australia has an interesting. Again, economics has been important, uh, but the visibility, the social aspect was especially critical in Australia because they not only say, "Oh, it looks, that's doing it," but "Oh my goodness, everybody else is doing. I better do it too." When you hit that point, you really get acceleration, and there have been a number of communities and sometimes only neighborhoods where that has happened. But in Australia, neighbors adopted, the trust in the technology goes up. They see it working next door to them. There's the social pressure. You install it. The scale causes prices to fall, and again, the whole loop just keeps accelerating. And even when utility scale solar dominates the total amount of megawatts, socially, putting it on your rooftop was important, which leads to looking a little bit at even Texas. Texas in 2024, the state wanted to push gas and it wanted to de-emphasize. Even many people wanted to stop solar and wind, and yet the economics caused solar, wind, and batteries huge amount of growth in capacity, and natural gas actually declined as some plants shut and hardly any were built. And so that is showing us how a solar tipping point, independent, well, in part response to, but independent of what we activists do, can drive the issue. And we do have the case that in most of the world, solar is now cheaper. Okay. No, I mentioned the rooftop issue. Actually, Texas has the most utility scale solar in the country. But in California, they have set up to make rooftop valuable, and as a result, they have done a lot of additional 25 to 30% of all of their energy is now coming from rooftop solar. And you don't hear, the people who do it actually have lowered their utility bills in California, and they're very happy about that. Showing the power of tipping points, social tipping points. Another area is in electric vehicles, and again, we have hit an acceleration point. You can see this curve of increasing, and this stopped at 2023. And of course, we are having problems in the US with their administration and climate change issues. But the rest of the world is also critical in doing it. So, what drove the electric vehicle tipping points? Once again, cost was important. As you got more, the battery prices went down, and the total cost of ownership is cheaper for electric vehicles, and it has been for a few years now. The performance is excellent. The charging infrastructure, obviously, it has to be there, but the places that want it are doing that. Policies do help a lot. Mandates and incentives, procurement, and again, social contagion as norms develop. And in the case study of Norway, he went into that in more detail. And of course, the manufacturing scale can always help drive prices down. Okay, so Norway, they were the first one to really move on electric vehicles. And I can't go into all the cool things they did, but there was a few key activists, including a couple of music rock stars in Norway, who pushed this. They were able to get some incentives passed, which cost the government almost nothing when only a few were being bought. But these included eliminating the value-added tax on electric vehicles, free tolls, Special lanes for buses could also be used by electrical vehicle, but not by anything else, and special places to park. And all of that led out to some advantages, especially for commuters who were stuck, who had been stuck in traffic. And of course they implemented a lot of the charging infrastructure. And so they managed to get a purchase price parity fairly early with all of these additional things. And after the tipping, the incentives were cut back, but the adoption continued to accelerate because it was not only ethically right in their views, but it was economically right for them. And so the policy can create the conditions for self-propelling change, and you can actually remove policies, and it continues to accelerate. This is very good news for activists. Of course, China has driven the electric vehicle market. They've provided subsidies, they've done pilots, they built out the charging structure, and of course, the max sharing scale has driven cost declines. And it wasn't mentioned in this, but they have they have to go for low cost vehicles, not luxury vehicles, and so they're hunting for cost declines more strongly than for example the car manufacturers in the U.S. So this continued until it became a very rapid acceleration. Over half of the vehicles now purchased are electrical, and so the lesson is supply uh, matters. You need to have cheap supply, not just consumer demand. You can sometimes have the supply, and that increases the thing. Okay, in the United States, the election we have an uneven situation. It's true, California mandated, and that forced more research in the offering of electric vehicles, getting the manufacturing started on it. Tesla actually created a high visibility market segment that was, hey, cool people buy Tesla. Uh, and federal incentives and state policies and providing the charging infrastructure, which the Inflation Reduction Act was going to provide to a really good extent. All of that are key accelerators within the U.S. market. When we had the incentives, the last few years, we had increased purchase, and now that we have gotten rid of them, it has dropped off a bit. So tipping can be slower in fragmented policy environments because you have different states with different ones. But it still is moving, and of course the U.S. is a sluggard. Most of the world is moving much more faster. So again, scale is important, infrastructure is important, social contagion has been very important, more in some places than others. The industry flips, they decide, hey, we can make more money off of electric vehicles. And then if we have good policies, that makes a big difference. Okay, now ways to accelerate change before the tipping point. Reducing friction. For example, permitting slows and makes higher costs for solar and wind energy. Providing interconnection, providing enough financing. That's a key cost factor in renewable energies. Create policy certainty so people and especially businesses can plan and know that what will be stable. We haven't had that in the U.S. lately, but that's a key thing. And again, this is a worldwide phenomenon. Making the benefits visible when there are pilots, splashing them over the media, uh, spreading early adopter stories, shifting the narratives, costs. Most people still think electric vehicles are really expensive, and but they're not anymore, and so that needs to shift. The health advantages, the freedom from gas volatility in prices, the job what can be done. So once you hit a tipping point, you generally will get continued increase in what you want to have happen. For example, more solar energy. But we do need to protect momentum, and the current administration has shown how you can slow down the inevitable. Um, so so protecting the momentum is valuable and important. CCL helped to fight legislation that would have really stopped solar and wind in Texas at the last legislature, and that was important work. Scale complements. Again, as you get more and more, there's the you have a lot of valuable uh, effects. And of course, the learning curves keep improving things. Equity and access, the benefits can expand as the coalition grows. And again, it is important to notice bottlenecks and fix them. Grid queues, permitting, supply constraints, all of those that were addressed in the Inflation Reduction Act, and the grid seems to be one of the bigger permitting bottlenecks right now, which is why CCL is focusing on it. Note also that one tipping point can help another, and they can cascade. For example, cheaper solar led to cheaper electric vehicle charging, giving us more EVs. The more EVs then gave us cheaper batteries and more grid storage. More storage gave us easier solar integration, which helped still more solar. And the city design shifts can lead to fewer car miles and easier electrification targets. And finally, conversation plus visibility can lead to a better political space, better policies, and faster adoption. And so I want to conclude with something that we have heard in CCL, but we cannot emphasize it enough. As Dr. Catherine Hayhoe said, the most important thing you can do for the climate is to talk about it. Building the momentum, building the social contagion requires good narratives, and people have to know them. The majority of the people in the US now think something needs to be to do about climate change, but they rarely talk about it or they rarely do anything about it. So finally, the key takeaway, negative tipping points are important. They create urgency that's real. The positive tipping points, though, are why actions can scale fast. Things can go slow for so long and then suddenly they move fast. And that's important for fixing climate change. Solar has entered its rapid acceleration globally. It is cheaper almost everywhere, even in the US, except for the false
We lost you, Bob.
Okay, we just hang out and wait for Bob to get back with us. All right. Let me just call Bob on his cell phone real quick, see if he can join, and I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So yeah, Bob was not able to join the internet. He's at a hotel right now, but he's going to be trying to dial in by phone, and he'll be able to take some questions and answers by phone. So we'll just wait for him, see if he can join.
Thank you.
Hi, Bob.
I just remembered I can use my phone, not my and not the Wi-Fi. So
Okay, great. Thanks for rejoining. So we'll open it up now to any questions and answers that anybody has. Anybody?
I would
Well,
like
I
to
have a,
say great presentation and glad to meet you all.
thank you.
I just have a comment. I was thinking about what you shared, Bob, about Norway promoting electric vehicles. And
Yes.
I'm thinking, I don't know what the population of Norway is, but I'm guessing it's around, I don't know, the size of the Houston urban area. And so I was thinking about special EV lanes, free tolls. So that infrastructure is already there. And I don't know what it would take to lobby whoever's in charge of those things, but that might help.
Yeah, I bet it would. I'm not sure that is practical in the U.S. The toll companies seem to be private money making things, and they may find it not wanting to do that. And but yeah, it obviously would help a lot of people who commute to just say, hey, let me do it. And now we do have though places even in Houston, I think, where if you have a electric vehicle, you can use the same lanes as the people who would carpool. At least I've seen that in some. So we that's a piece that towards that. But when Norway did it, there were like one out of 100,000 cars had EV, and so it was an easy choice for them to make. And they resisted until these guys in a small group kept hammering them. And they thought, okay, they won't cost us anything. Anyway, no, but that would be great. I that's not, yeah, that would be a tough task in some places. But it's an interesting, very interesting thought.
Yeah. If I can just add on to that thought, it seems as though that would be like a regional or local basis. For example, in Harris County, it's the Harris County Toll Authority that manages the tolls here, and in other counties or other states, it's whoever the authority is. It would be I think probably a fragmented, difficult thing, but it does sound positive. Hey, well, Carl, I think you're next.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bob. Great presentation. Very impressive. It looks like you put that together yourself. I saw a lot of references in the slides and so on. Is that
Most
right?
of it was from the book,
Oh, it's from the
Positive
book.
Performance.
Okay.
It's an excellent book with lots of interesting case studies.
Okay. Okay. Great. No.
I
No,
added
well.
I added the Texas data and the graphs.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. So, well, it was very nicely done. I just wanted to make a quick comment about Australia because I'm actually from there, and
Oh, okay.
I visit there a lot. And you're absolutely correct. Rooftop solar and home batteries have really taken off, and they've become kind of just something that people do very commonly. I believe, this is really, it is driven ultimately by economics because there's subsidized or there's credits, there's all these different ways, and it's pretty sensitive to that, and there's a lot of attention by the government to those issues, and as they change, if they go up, subsidies go up or down, you can see the changes in what people are actually doing. So it's kind of it's essentially it's economically driven, but of course there's the social agreement that the government should be doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice to hear the confirmation, and that's straight from the book. They did an Australia case study.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I
Much
mean
more
your
detailed.
comments sounded I mean they sounded very accurate to me.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jim, you're next.
Oh, yes, thanks. Sorry I was late to the presentation, connection problems. A lot of good points. I think, one of the most compelling reasons for the rooftop solar is land use. I mean, you've got,
Correct.
if you have suitably oriented roofs, that puts things behind the meter and there's a land use argument. One thing I didn't hear, I might have missed it, was for the EVs, the air quality improvement. Uh, particularly in the developing world where they have a lot of two-cycle motorcycles as a common form of transport, those things are just filthy on the exhaust.
Yeah,
And
excellent point. I did say the word health, but I was running through things so fast.
yeah,
That- and you're right.
know.
That was an issue for China because of how bad it got there.
Well, and India has a lot of transport like that. Admittedly, they still use a lot of coal for their general um, generation, but that's a definite improvement, I believe, that they've seen, which goes to health and everything else. And the my understanding of the Norway situation was because they import all their vehicles, and they had like a 25% tariff. They just eliminated the tariffs on the EVs, and so right away there was a motivation for folks. Um, to get their electric Volvos from Sweden. So yeah, a lot of things can add up very productively to a much more desirable result. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, I'd like to ask a question. I think on one of your slides, you had mentioned that the path for the tipping points or what happens next, the momentum afterwards, is not always a straight line. I guess there are some bumps in the road. And is there any feedback you can talk about that? I'd be really interested to hear more about that.
Um, I mean the if you look at the civil rights movement, it would have been hard to predict the impact of the dogs and hoses turned on the children in Birmingham. Nobody planned for that. But that really, at least in my memory, it really turned a lot of the North's attitude towards, oh no, we can't let this continue. And so, yes, there are unexpected and there are bumps and there are, successes, small successes that lead. But yes, it is we know what to push for, but we don't know how we're pushing will actually make the change. And of course, policy is critical, as we've talked, and that is why CCL is focused on policy.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? this was a good discussion.
Sorry, go
Mark?
ahead, Mark.
Yeah, Bob, sorry if you hear my dog in the background. He's dreaming and barking. But I just wanted to clarify on Texas situation. You brought up regarding solar, the huge growth in batteries. Did I understand correctly that that led to the further increase in deployment of solar modules across the state despite government opposition to that?
Um, yes, it does. It is really important to have the two coupled, and in some cases it is. But yes, the necessity, we've got to have batteries if we have solar in order to have the constant. But at this point, the batteries plus solar in most of the world is still cheaper than fossil fuel for electricity generation.
Does that apply to Texas also? Do you know?
Um, yes and no. The battery situation is complex, and I can't go into it. The earliest people to get batteries made a killing off of having the batteries, but as more and more are adopted, their level of profit goes down, but it's still there. So, and there's actually profit. The profits for solar and the profits of battery are often separate, although they work together complementarily to stabilize the grid.
I think someone else had a question. I'm not sure who it was, though. Oh, Will, go ahead, please.
Well, it wasn't exactly a question, but this was more of a. So I'm reading a book right now called Short Circuiting Policy: Interest Groups in the Battle Over Clean Energy and Climate Policy in the American States. That it covers quite a bit of what Bob was talking about in terms of like policy feedback. It's less about social feedback and more about policy feedback, where it's so I guess I just wanted to let you know, Bob, just in case you feel like I feel like it complements your book quite well. It talks about this was written before 2022, so it focuses on the states and less on the Inflation Reduction Act at the national level. But it talks about a renewable portfolio standards at the very beginning of like the Texas grid, where they were restructuring the grid, and then some environmental advocates had worked to basically say, hey, we want 1% of our grid to be powered by renewable energy by 2005 or something. And then they started overshooting that policy so much because as they built, they found out how to make it cheaper and cheaper, and so they keep it's like these policy feedbacks that the incumbents they aren't aware is going to hurt their bottom line until they start seeing them in action. And so it's like a way of resisting even in states that like they aren't as friendly towards renewable energy or climate policy.
Thanks for sharing that. That sounds like a book I should read.
Thank you, Will. Anybody else? Okay, Bob, this was an excellent discussion and presentation. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to continue. All right, can everybody see my screen still?
Yes.
Great. I'll make that bigger for you. All right, so here's a slide that I always have in our monthly meetings, group discussion and reflection. Then in quotes there, what can I do as a volunteer climate advocate? And so what I always try to emphasize every month is that no matter how much we care about helping to solve climate change, it's up to us to really do something, to step up and take the actions that are necessary. And without us, individually stepping up or as a group stepping up, I'm not sure how much, we can actually accomplish. And that's especially true as an organization like CCL. We depend on our volunteers to actually do things to help us move forward. And so in the past couple of months, I've added this the section there, that box in the top right corner, just offering some what I call hints. If you're not sure what there is that you can do, I always try to make some suggestions or hints. And hey, these are things that are coming up that could be really, really important. And so I just wanted to bring these to everybody's attention. So item number one, I'm sure you've seen the emails and other notifications that Citizens Climate Lobby always has a summer conference session in Washington, D.C., where many, many volunteers travel directly to Washington, D.C. to be there in person for the lobby day meetings with our elected representatives. And so that is coming up. I don't think it's too late to sign up and plan on joining. The web link is there if you need more details. So that is one of the most important things that's coming up immediately. That will be happening in July, and we have a separate slide coming up with more details on that as well. Item number two, there's another brand new project, which actually Bob is pushing forward for us. And I have another slide to talk more about that coming up right after this one. But this is called the Texas Voter Engagement Project. And so primarily what this is all about is that we know, just because of, having family and friends, we know there are many, many people that just don't vote. And if there are ways where we can help get out the vote and really do something and vote for the right people, this is where this will help, help things move in the right direction there. So before we go on to those other slides where we'll talk about those in more details, I always like to just ask if anyone would like to share anything that they've done recently, anything that you've done, any actions you've taken, or just anything going on that you would like to share. If you'd like to share, just, speak up. If not, that's fine too. Anybody?
I'll share.
What car?
Sure, I can share one thing. So I've been monitoring opportunities to comment on regulations, and there's a couple that have comment periods that are open currently that are pretty high profile and climate related. So these are not CCL activities, but people can comment as individuals. One is that the SEC had they had proposed a requirement whereby companies would have to disclose the financial risk that they incur from climate change. And there's a complicated background to this, but this rule, it was never put in place, but it's still kind of out there, and the Trump administration is formally withdrawing it. So they're issuing another rule to withdraw this proposed rule. And there's a comment period. And so you can actually, so you got an opportunity to comment on this. I don't, and from a climate perspective, it would be to comment against that rule that the administration is now proposing. Then there's another one as well, which was also discussed in the CCL forums a bit. The OMB, Office of Management and Budget, I think, is going to, it has proposed a rule that will institute significant requirements for government funding across the board for all kinds of different activities, including science projects. And on the science side, what it would allow them to do is to require projects to be aligned with the administration's agenda, allow them to stop projects easily, allow them to review the output from projects. So these are all, science-funded activities. So, so this is kind of downstream of things that CCL is working on. I mean, we have advocated for funding for various science activities for those to continue. Well, downstream of that, there's more hurdles, and this is potentially one of them. And the rulemaking period is open for that also. So I just wanted to mention those two things.
Bakar, that was very interesting. If you happen to have the web links for those items to put them in the chat, and anyone that's interested can then actually take some action on that, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, I can try to do that. I can try to do that now, or maybe I could send Joe, I could send you an email also afterwards, and you could include it in the notes or something, or
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
but let me try to do it now. Okay.
Mark, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I know you're going to talk about the voter engagement project, but I just wanted to share that I recently volunteered to do that. And the way I did that was I looked at some of the details and like you can request, I think, a minimum of 100 postcards. And I figured that I can write one a day between now and the mailing date, which is mid-October. And that seemed very doable, and it seems like something that could really make a difference. So just my thought process into
Thank you, Mark.
volunteering for that.
Yep. And we have another slide, so Bob will be able to talk about all the details on that on the next slide coming up. Thank you. Would anybody else like to just mention anything that you're currently doing, working on? Okay, I'm going to start sharing again and we'll continue. Thank you for those. All right, I'm going to go on to the next page. And so, Bob, here's the page that I created. The Texas Voter Engagement Project, handwritten postcards. Feel free to jump in and share all the details, Bob.
Sure. And obviously who is elected has a huge impact on what the policy is. And so when we have a chance to affect that, it can be nice. What this does, and this is supported by CCL, but this is an independent project that my wife and I are running, with a lot of help from CCL and the Sierra Club. But what we're doing is the three most competitive U.S. House races in Texas, and yes, there is one or two, despite the attempts by gerrymandering to reduce it to none, are in the Lower Rio Grande Valley, heavily Latino population. So we have selected those counties down there to focus a get out the vote postcard project. And I have full details. I don't need to go into that, but there's a couple of key points that are worth noting. One is this is going to people who have a high rating on being alarmed about the climate based on the Yale Communications polling and modeling. So first of all, it's going to more likely climate concerned people to try to get more of them to vote. Secondly, the easiest people to try to get to vote are the people who did vote in the presidential election, but did not vote in the midterm elections. And because they already know how to vote, they know that there's no barriers there. They just didn't, it wasn't as important to them. So trying to just make it more important and move to that. That is again, the people we're sending the postcards to have those, and we use all the best research on how to do it. Everything is bilingual. A lot of us will have to be to concentrate more to copy a message that is both in English and in Spanish. But you can, there are links and you can sign up, and we send out postcards. In fact, we mailed, I don't know, probably 4,000 postcards yesterday to people, including, I think, you, Mark. So I could talk more, but I think that's enough.
Bob, just one thing I want to bring up, and if you can just confirm whether or not I'm going to say I think is actually correct. I think it is. But I've read somewhere, or maybe you even mentioned it, that one of the most effective ways to get people to get out the vote is actually sending them a personalized postcard, right? Did you say that, or Maybe you can talk more about
I
that.
guess I didn't, and I should have. The analyst group has supervised and summarized dozens and dozens of research studies with control groups using hundreds of thousands of subjects, and they all show that a handwritten message with a social pressure context, which this postcard does, is the most effective way to increase the number of people who get out to vote.
And how will you handle actually sending the postcards to people? Do they have to request how many postcards to receive, or what are the mechanics of that?
Yes, volunteers request how many postcards, and once again, it's in 100 lots. It actually costs as much to mail 100 as it does 200. So, or 50. So we're not really mailing out small amounts of 50 because of the cost of just mailing it. But yes, when they sign up, then and we have a sign up form, then we capture the information necessary to get them out. We may end up having some hubs. We may have a couple in Houston where you can go to their house and pick them up to save the about $8 per time we mail it from Austin to elsewhere in the state.
Thank you, Bob. Does anyone have any more questions about the postcard project? Because since we have Bob here, he's the guy that can answer them directly. Anybody? Okay, thank you, Bob. I'm going to go back to the slides. Oh, there's something in the chat. Let me see. Oh, that's from Wakar. Okay, thank you, Wakar, for putting that info in there.
Okay, I'm
That's
going to
great.
go ahead and sign off. Thanks you all very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, on to the next page. And so one thing that I always like to remind people of is that immediately following our meeting, when our meeting ends at 12 noon, the CCL national team has their own monthly meeting that they always do. And so their meeting starts 12 noon Central Time to 1 p.m. It's a 1-hour meeting. And here are all the web links and info in case you might be interested in joining that immediately after our meeting ends. Okay, and then just to reinforce and talk a little bit more about our CCL National Summer Conference in Washington, D.C. I'm sure you've heard about this already, so this could be maybe just a reminder. It's taking place July 26th through 28th. It is in person. There is not going to be any Zoom line for that. And if it is something that you are interested in doing, you can click there on the link and get more details and go ahead and get signed up. It's really, really important. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on? Okay, I'm going to keep going. And so now we're up to the section where we go through the 5 teams that we have: the lobby team, Brass Tops team, Grassroots, Media, and Chapter Development. And we'll talk a little bit about each of these. So for the lobby team, Judith is no longer leading us in that area, but we still want to have it here in our agenda and talk a little bit about it. So most recently, if you have not heard, we did have 2 additional CCL volunteers sign up to be liaisons for the Texas 09. That's Will. Will, thank you very much. I know you're on the call with us today. And Michael Shee. And so that's the new status there. That happened a couple months ago. We still currently have 2 legislative districts still open. That means by open, we don't have any volunteer liaison assigned. That's for the Texas 10, where currently we have Michael McCall, in Texas 22, where we currently have Troy Nels. And if anyone is, oh, I'm sorry, we had another new volunteer sign up as well. That was Chrissy Stone. She signed up also for Texas 36, Brian Babin. And so that really helped us out. And so all of these liaisons have key roles with the summer conference and the lobby day coming up. That means scheduling meetings so that we can join those meetings and so on. Oh, before I go on, any questions about the lobby team or anything going on with lobbying? Anybody? And we're going to continue. So our next slide here, this is for our grass tops team led by Court Hall. Court was not able to join our meeting today, but she's very active with things going on at the grass tops level. And if anybody has any questions or would like to help her out, her email contact is right there at the top in yellow. Okay, grassroots team, we have Mark. Mark, do you want to talk about your grassroots activity?
Sure. This is mainly for the new people because most people on the call probably know what grassroots team is there for. But we either show up at a tabling event where we talk one-on-one with people passing by who stop by and are interested in what we do. So great way to practice your skill at talking one-on-one with people and just connecting with them that way. And then we also will do a presentation. We usually have more than one person doing the presentation, so it's kind of a team effort, makes it more fun. And we've done those at a few churches, a couple of schools, and yeah. Anybody have any connection with any place where we could do a presentation, or if you have an event on your schedule and think we might be welcome there to set up a table, please get in touch with me.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark about grassroots? Okay, I'm going to move on. And the media team, which is led by myself. And one of the most important activities that I'm involved with is putting together and distributing our monthly newsletter. And I always include the two most recent newsletters that we've sent out. The web links are there in case for whatever reason you didn't get it in your inbox. So that's showing the May 3rd newsletter and then also the June 7th newsletter. Is anybody not receiving that? I hope everybody is getting it. The web links are there if you need them. And then also another very important activity for anyone who might be interested is writing letters to the editor of a local newspaper. And so I have the links there following that about how to actually write a letter to the editor, and then some fairly recent examples. Well, the examples are a little bit old by now, but examples are there of how to do that. And then I'm going to go on to the next page. And so last September 2025, is where we did have an actual workshop going into more details of writing the letter to the editor, about how you do that, and some tips and pointers. And so the web link is there if anyone wants to go back through that and see that information that we previously presented. Okay, in chapter development, Mark, anything you want to add here?
Yes, seems like the last month or two we're getting less new members from national. So I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I don't know, getting like 5 or 6 a month now.
Okay, anything that you would like people to possibly help with, to volunteer with chapter development work?
No, we had one of our newer members, Michael, she volunteered to help with that. So we now have 3 people that are interacting with new members. So I think we're good now.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to go on. And so that is our last slide. I'm going to stop sharing. And so at this point, in the time we have remaining, if anyone has any open discussion, any feedback or questions you would like to share, or just so we can have a discussion. Wakar, I know that you and Bob were talking a little bit about the lobby day in Washington, D.C., and I know Bob had to drop off, but if you'd like to discuss that a little bit here, that's fine. Or not, it's up to you.
Okay. And I sent an email to Bob just now as well to see if he'd like to have a follow-up discussion
Thank
with
you.
me. So I think that could be good. So yeah, I don't want to I guess the question at the beginning of the meeting was who's planning to go to the to the lobbying, and I don't mean to put anybody off from going to lobbying. I think it's a great event and very well very well done and really quite amazing what CCL puts on. Um, Personally, I think I've been building a pretty good relationship with my member of Congress and staff, and so it's good incentive to go. Um, I it's just I think my comments were more personal from my perspective. I have deep background in oil and gas. I look at some of the things CCL says about permitting reform, and I just have questions around how some of the bullet points, the high level bullet points are stated around that. And Bob mentioned this actually. Permitting reform reduces friction. It reduces friction for solar and wind and all of those good things that we want. It also reduces friction for oil and gas pipelines, oil and gas infrastructure. And this is just not discussed in CCL. And I see this as kind of a blind spot. Um, and it's great to focus on the good stuff. It keeps us motivated, it keeps us going, and so on, right? And it's where we want to head. But I think you need clarity around what you're doing and why you're doing it. And putting aside some of these other issues, I don't think is like, to me, because I know about them, right? I might spent my whole career there, and I know there's going to be gas pipelines built as a result of permitting reform or built faster. There's several projects that have been stopped, and you guys don't hear about it. I mean, I don't know if you know about any gas pipelines that have been stopped because they didn't get permits. Maybe that's a question. Does anybody know of any gas pipelines that were
Yeah,
stopped?
yeah. So, Akar, I know that I think during the Biden administration, there was the pipeline that Canada was trying to build to export. Was it natural gas into the U.S. or was it crude oil? I don't remember.
The
That was
Keystone.
an oil pipeline, and yeah, Biden pulled the permits for it. And that was stopped. And I'm not actually arguing that that's the way to stop fossil fuels, because really we want to stop them by reducing demand, not supply, right? I mean, reducing supply increases all other kind of problems, and you get political blowback from doing that. But what I'm saying is you got to look at the whole picture and understand it, and then position your messaging and what you're trying to do in with respect to that. Um, and I probably just have too much of a deep background in that area relative to, just because of my background. And so when I see some things that are like, well, you're missing all of this stuff, you haven't built it into your messaging, or it's kind of glossed over, and that's where I'm coming from. So I'm not at all against what CCL is doing or trying to achieve. I mean, 100% not against that. So just to give you an idea, I mean, gas pipelines into New York and Northeast were basically stopped, canceled because of permitting issues. So the states like New York State, and it's kind of a bogus thing that they did, but they said, well, Clean Water Act allows us to say, well, you're going to damage the water, and so we're not going to allow this pipeline. And that was kind of bogus because it's not really an application of the Clean Water Act. But that's what they did. And similar things further in the Northeast, up in Massachusetts. So the pipeline into New York now is going to go ahead because the governor there came to a deal with President Trump. So it's a wind farm, that President Trump's going to allow to go ahead in exchange for this pipeline, right? I mean, this is what's going on. And then, but there's other pipelines, and permitting reform is going to allow them to be built. There's an oil products pipeline that's going to go actually connecting up oil products, like gasoline, jet fuel, etc., from the middle of the country through Texas into California. 200,000 barrels per day. It's going to get connected up. They need permits. Um, and that's going to allow, flow into California, which is an expensive market. Probably lower prices there a little bit, probably increase gasoline consumption, probably extend the life of the use of gasoline. Okay, so there's going to be all these other effects because of permitting reform that are not being addressed directly by CCL. it's a complicated story, and I can see why maybe they're just going to the highlights that are beneficial things for the climate. Um, but for someone who knows all this other stuff, it makes it a little difficult to follow word for word the CCL messaging that is being put out there, because it's a lot more complicated situation than what's presented. Yeah, that's where I was
Jim,
coming from. Just to clarify, but you should all go to the lobby event if you're thinking about going. I see Willis smiling. I know it was great to work with you last year, and I don't know if you're thinking of going again. You should go again. You were great.
Thank you, thank you. Still debating that.
Okay, okay.
Jim, I saw your hand up. Did you want to also talk about permitting, or was that something else? Or I know you dropped your hand after that. You're on mute. Okay, well, Lakar, as you were talking about that, I just had a thought about permitting that I actually never thought of before, but it just occurred to me that as soon as Trump took office, he blocked the permits for the wind projects that were supposed to have been built off the Northeast in the Atlantic. And so, as you were talking, making valid points from your perspective, I just realized that if one presidential administration or another is going to block these permits or those permits, that could be a problem when we want our permits to be approved. And so maybe the answer is that nobody should really be blocking any permits, because to move forward with what we need to do, I guess we can't be choosy and allow some permits or other permits, but not these permits. That's kind of like the conclusion I just reached, like in the past 5 minutes. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great point. And that's about permitting certainty and administrations not being able to arbitrarily pull permits. I mean, I think it just makes a lot of sense, right? There's no way to run a country where you change the government and all of a sudden all these permits that are granted and projects underway and the permits get pulled is crazy. So yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And in the long run, I think, but to me, what this all comes down to is that ultimately you got to hope that technology on the clean energy side will advance rapidly enough and get cheap enough that it will outweigh what's happening on the fossil fuel side. And or there may be other policies in the future like carbon fee and dividend that will help to shift things. Permitting reform to me is more of an accelerator, and it's kind of a bet. And it's basically saying, okay, let's accelerate things. You don't know exactly which direction the car is heading in. It may be heading down the road, it may be heading to a ditch. Um, we don't have a steering wheel right now. And hopefully the steering wheel will get built and we'll be fine, right? So that's kind of how I see permitting reform. And it's very different to how people in CCL see it and how they talk about it.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, it seems like financials and economics is really the driving force when it comes to business decisions. That's what businesses care about. And so as long as we give them the opportunity, it's going to be the finances that drive it, I think, ultimately, which is
Yeah.
what you said. As costs are dropping, it almost becomes a no-brainer decision, I think.
Well, yes, but you got to look at the whole energy system, right? I mean, the whole focus amongst the environmental organizations is on the electricity sector, which is only 35% of primary energy. The other 65% is out there. It's never talked about. We just heard a great talk from Bob, but it was all about the electricity sector, right? So
Yep.
so so there's all this other stuff that's out there, which I think you got to understand so that you can address it. And when members of Congress have questions like, oh, hey, okay, we do permanent reform, and what's going to happen with gas pipelines, oil refineries, and the answers that CCL has are kind of buzzy bullet points like, well, renewables will be helped more by permitting reform than fossil fuels. I mean, what does that even mean, right? So I mean, I'm a much like more detailed level thinking about this, and I just don't know if that works really in the long run, because you start to, all you're doing is putting just buzzy phrases out there. Do they really help? Is that really moving things along? So anyway, I'll stop at that point. But that's kind of where what I've been trying to decide whether to go to the conference and
Yeah.
or not.
Well, those are good points, and thank you for raising that, Waqar. I thought this was a good discussion. It's always good to have pros and cons of, whatever we're talking about. So we're not just assuming that everything that we're told is actually fully correct or whatever.
Or the full picture, or is it the full picture, or is it being simplified, to make
Yeah,
it easier to absorb or something?
that's the thing. When we get into meetings with our representatives, we have to give the 1 minute or the the 1 or 2 sentence lines that we want to get. It's just like an advertisement on TV. They don't have an hour to talk about something. We're trying to sell our product or our policy, and we only have a very limited time. So it's going to be simplified, I think.
Yeah, I think the main message that we're giving by going and talking to our representatives is, hey, there's a whole bunch of people out here who care about the climate. I think that's the message that we give. Um, Right, but if a representative says, "Well, what about why is the American Petroleum Association lobbying so hard for permitting reform? Why would they lobby for something so hard that's going to hurt their business?" And that's actually not an easy question to answer. Are you going to say they're wrong? I mean, they got a lot of resources. They got a lot of money on the line. Their member companies do. So how could they be wrong, right? It would,
You
would
know,
be my reaction if I was a member of Congress, right?
I think I have a good response to that, but I have a question first. Um, of the number of pipelines that currently exist or new ones being planned, what's the percentage? How many of those are natural gas pipelines compared to crude oil? And the
Most
reason
of them
I'm
are natural. Yeah, most are natural gas.
the
And
reason
yeah,
I'm asking that question is because that could be, one potential response back on that question. That, hey, with the data center build out going on, which is just going to be consuming enormous amounts of electricity, some of that electricity will be generated by natural gas. And by not approving those permits, at least, you're hurting the advancement of what we need to do.
oh, I agree. I mean, so that's an economic argument, and there's a lot of those, and you could lower prices. Like natural gas is very, very expensive up in New England. It's like 2 or 3 times the cost in a very, very cold area of what it is in Texas. So because of a lack of supply, and they use fuel oil and other very expensive heating things. So you can argue about a lot of these things from an economic perspective or a practicality perspective. Um, the emissions argument, though, is more complicated, and um, I just feel like, well, I think stop. Maybe I should stop there. I think we just don't address those kind of head on, and if we did, I think we could have a better. We could influence policies in a better way. We could focus on specifics in policies that really help the climate. Focus on the climate, how to help outcomes. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Thank you, Clark. We'll move on. Does anybody else have any other questions or feedback that you might want to get into in the remaining minutes here? Let me see what time it is. Well, it's almost 11:50, so we do have 10 more minutes if anyone would like to open any other discussions, really on anything related.
I have a suggestion, Joe.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, go ahead.
I would be interested in hearing from a couple of the new people like Bazay and Titi, maybe Yasin also, about what motivated you to sign on today. Or if you want to say anything about what you're interested in terms of changing climate policy, I'd be interested.
Please. Bisay and TT, is this your first meeting you're attending, or have you joined a few of these? And please speak up.
Yeah, no, this is my first meeting. I found Citizens Climate Lobby on the Earth Day this time in April. I went to the Discovery Green and they had a booth, and that's where I came to know about them. I think I I followed CCL on LinkedIn for last couple of years, but I didn't make the connection anyway. So I am a geologist. I worked in the energy industry for 6 years. I left last year in the hope that I can work on the policy for climate and environmental justice. And I have been involved with Houston climate movement since my graduate school, 2018, and I volunteered with them. I have been to Washington, D.C. for lobby day with them and also with Union of Concerned Scientists. So, I mean, while working in the energy industry, I met with people from all around the world, and their life has been upended due to climate change. And I originally come from India, and where I am from, all those like cyclone, that's what we call those strong storms there. The cyclones were a rare event, but now it's coming every year, and it's really like it's a huge disturbance for the people in those areas. It's literally destroying the forest, the ecology, and everything. So for me, I mean, I feel like I can use my skill set, my passion for doing something good. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. PT and also Bizet, would you mind putting your email addresses in the chat, and that'll help us be able to follow up with you.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Bizet, feel
Hello.
free to speak up. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So good morning. It's a pleasure actually to be here today. It's been, I mean, a while since I have been following CCL. I haven't been able to make it, I mean, like to one of the meetings in person or on Zoom. Today I'm able to, I mean, like I'm so happy that I made it. So why I'm environmentalist by profession. I have been doing like environmental research for over 10 years. I'm originally from Ethiopia. I've been to Australia. I did my PhD in Australia, and I have been doing a lot of research in East Africa and in the southern. And it's been almost 4 years since I moved to Houston. So ever since I moved, I mean, I have been following, especially the CCL. I get emails and updates all the time, but I haven't been able to make it to the one of the meetings. I'm sorry. So why I'm interested in this is because I was a postdoc. Actually, that's why I moved to Houston at Rice University. Currently, I'm a visiting academic, and why I'm interested in this is because I did a lot of science, but I always had this passion of like how to implement the science on the ground. And the much of the research I have been working at Rice was on the science and policy interface, because I mean, like, as we do a lot of science, but much of it is not implemented, it's shelved. So my passion is in how to translate the science into tools that can help the community and policymakers. So that's why I'm interested in this. So I'm so glad that, I mean, I heard like a lot of great, I mean, about the presentation and the discussions. So I'm learning about the CCL now better. So that's why I'm here. Thank
Oh,
you for
great.
the opportunity. Mhm.
Can you also add your email address in the chat?
I will. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Any feedback on anything? Discussion topics? If not, we only have 5 minutes left, so we're going to be ending pretty quickly. Say I'm going to wait until I see your email in the chat though before I disconnect. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of the weekend.
Likewise.
Oh, there it is. I see it now, Jose. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you again, everybody. Bye now.